Just before this video starts, I actually need to issue a very quick correction. Between the time I recorded this and the time I finished editing it, the French President Macron has come out and said that the attack of that man was a massive stain on his country. So I just wanted to correct that. The part where I say that Macron didn't do anything about it, he has actually now issued a statement in the meantime. So anyway, enjoy the video. Good afternoon, lads and lassies. Irish Demon here, back with another video. This is episode 3 of Daily Demon News. Now, guys, I gotta tell you, I'm having a bit of a change of heart about this this daily show, and I'll explain why. I really enjoyed the past couple of videos that I did, talking about funny things like squirrels getting drunk and, all that kind of thing. And it was fun. But today I was researching, as I do most days, about what topic I want to talk about. Now, be that, stuff that I usually do or this news stuff. And all I could see was some horrific stories. Very few funny or, exciting or interesting stories. Mostly tragedy. Now, the whole idea of me doing this daily news show, doing funny news, was to get away from some of that negativity. But I came to very quickly realize that I simply can't in good conscience do that. Not all the time anyway. When I see stories like the stories I saw today, stories that made me angrier than anything has in a long, long time, then I realized very quickly that this is the kind of stuff I should be covering. I have strong opinions, as you guys know, and I'm very clear with my opinions. I don't change them for anybody. I believe in free speech. I believe that I should be able to say whatever I want, and that you should be able to disagree with me and say whatever you want in return. And I think that's what I'm going to have to do. I can't stay silent on these topics. So I think I'm going to have to change the format of this show. That's not to say that I'm not going to do some funny stories from time to time. And that's not to say that all of these stories are going to be just horrific stories or whatever. But some of them will be. And if that's something that, you, the individual viewer, can't deal with or can't handle or doesn't simply want to see, then now is your chance to not watch these videos. I will still be putting up my regular content. I will still be doing my live streams. I'll still be doing my interview shows. And of course, I'll still be doing the Beardsman every Sunday. But this new show, I feel, is my opportunity to present things to a lot of you that you may not otherwise see. One of these stories is from France and hit worldwide headlines today and yesterday. The other story is from Australia. And unfortunately, it's something that happens all the time, but I feel like if I can share these things with some of you in other countries that may not see it otherwise, then I think I'm doing a good thing. I'm a very just person. I believe in justice. I try to do what's right as best as I can. But in this case, it may hurt some people's feelings to see some of the stuff that I'm going to bring up. It may trigger some people. So take this as the trigger warning. Some of the stuff that I'm going to cover in these daily stories are not going to be nice. They're not going to be pretty. In fact, they might cause some issues for some people. But I feel like it's the right thing to do. I feel like I've got to do this. You can go and read these stories, but I feel like me giving some of you my take on it, maybe opening the discourse a little bit, might help some people to process this. Anyway, I am going to start off this with a truly horrifying story. A very horrifying story that's in the news in Australia today. And I must be clear. You guys know I don't like trigger warnings, but I'm going to do it anyway because some of this stuff is horrific. This is your trigger warning. I don't need to tell you what the trigger warning is. The following stories are not pretty. If you don't like it, please, for your own good, don't watch it. But for those of you who want to hear what I've got to say, you're welcome to stay and give me your thoughts below about what I cover. I will be giving some of my own opinion on this. I'll quote where need be. I am not a journalist, so I will try my best, and I'll just tell you guys how I feel. So this story hit me today, and I've got to say, it upset me so much. It upset me more than anything has in a long time. So here it goes. This comes from ABC News in Australia. Townsville couple charged over 3-year-old girl's death in a hot car, released on bail. A Townsville mother and her partner who were charged with manslaughter death of the woman's 3-year-old daughter at the weekend have both been granted bail. Police allege that 3-year-old Riley Rose Black died from heat exposure after spending several hours in a 4-wheel drive parked in front of the mother's home in the Townsville suburb of Brutality on Friday. In court, police prosecutor Tasman Murphy said the mother and her partner had an argument on the way home from school drop-off when the small child fell asleep in her booster seat in the back and was left locked in the car while the pair returned home. The prosecutor said police would allege that the couple did not speak about the whereabouts of the child for approximately 5 hours while they watched television inside. 5 hours a 3-year-old was left unattended in a car. He told the court the pair only realised the 3-year-old was in the car when they left for school pickup at around 2:30 p.m. And this is a quote from the police prosecutor. Says they've turned around and they've seen the victims. Guys, I've got to tell you this is not pretty. So mute it or whatever if you don't want to hear the details. It's not overly graphic, but it's just not pretty. It's hard for me to read, so it might be hard for you to hear. They've turned around and seen the victim child's head slumped over. They've removed her from the booster seat to attempt CPR, and they've then driven her to the Townsville hospital, the police prosecutor said. And sadly, she was unable to be revived. A nurse at the hospital called the police, and the mother and her partner were later charged with manslaughter. So, in Australia, when you get arrested, you get taken to the watch house. You get questioned. The police decide whether or not to press charges, and if they do, depending on the severity, if it's something not that bad, then usually you'd be given a date to appear in court. If it's something fairly bad, then you will be brought straight to the magistrate's court the following day, and that's what happened in this case, obviously, because it's a very serious. Very, very serious offence. So Magistrate Kathy Waldley told the court that the couple were an acceptable risk of release and granted them bail. So let me just explain how this works in Australia. And it's similar for a lot of other countries. In Australia, if you've been accused of a crime, the only way that you can be held on bail is if you present a risk to the community, a risk of reoffending, or if you are a flight risk. There are some other criteria as well, depending on who you have links to, what your history is, etc., bail history and things like that. So in this case, neither of them were considered a risk to the public or a flight risk, and so were released on bail. I don't know the details of their bail. The next stuff is irrelevant. So let's talk about the defense. So their defense lawyer said the allegation is one of an unintentional act. Let me see here. So they've been in a relationship for about 3 months. So Detective Acting Inspector David Miles said police opposed bail on both occasions due to the seriousness of the offences. However, bail was granted for both defendants until February, and they are not expected in court. Now, from my experience spending a long time in court over the past number of years, it is almost a certainty that police will ask a magistrate to refuse bail. It's just kind of standard practice for anything serious or mildly serious. So I wouldn't read too much into that. So obviously the magistrate decided that they were not a risk to the community and were not a risk of at risk of flight, especially given the COVID situation, that they can't really go anywhere. But whether or not you think they should have been held on bail, in remand until a court hearing, I'd like to hear what you think below, because myself and Mrs. Demon had a bit of an argument about this earlier. Not an argument, we had a conversation about it, about what we thought. Anyway, So basically, they've just asked for help identifying where the vehicle was at different times and stuff like that. So anyway, I think it's fair to say this is a horrific incident. Sadly, this is really common here in Australia. More than 1,000 children are left in cars every year. Queensland police get called out to 4 on average a day. That's just one state. 4 on average a day left in hot cars in the hottest country in the world. It's mind-blowing to me. Not only do you leave a child, a 3-year-old, a toddler, a baby, unattended for 5 hours. You don't know where your 3-year-old child is for 5 hours. Not only that, but you left them in a car. It's one of the most disgusting things. There's no excuse. None whatsoever. It's one thing if the child was maybe playing in the yard or in her bedroom or something and you didn't check on her for 5 hours, which is ridiculous. I think anybody who has a 3-year-old toddler would agree that not knowing where your toddler is for 5 hours should cause you some concern while you're sitting and watching Netflix. The fact that they let this child in a car in 35 degrees Celsius heat, that means the inside of the car would have been 70 degrees within about 10 minutes. Now, I don't have to tell you, I don't know about any of you if you've ever been in a very, very hot car before where the AC doesn't work or whatever. That's no joke. That is an incredibly uncomfortable situation to be in. Imagine being in that situation for 5 hours, a child. This is one of the most heartbreaking things I've read in a long, long time. It's a horrific situation. I can't understand how anybody could sit there watching Netflix and not realize for 5 hours, oh, I haven't seen, my 3-year-old toddler for 5 hours. That's mind-blowing to me. There's no excuse. I think, we say it all the time about the Chihuahuas even. If they're quiet for a half an hour, something's not right. Either they're asleep or they've gotten out. If a 3-year-old toddler in the middle of the day is quiet for more than a half an hour and you don't see them there asleep, something's probably wrong and you need to go check that out. 5 hours that child was locked in that car. Now, this is going to be a tough sentence for me to say, but I've got to say it. That would have been a horrific death for that poor child. Horrific. I sat in a case before where a man was left in the back of a vehicle and he died the same way. Horrific. I just can't get over it that somebody would do this to their child. They're saying it's an unintentional act. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, as a parent, as a guardian of a 3-year-old girl, you need to know where that child is. And you know what the thing is? The funny thing about this is... funny is not the right word. The thing that gets me about this isn't the second time, this isn't the first time I've seen something like this today where I thought, why was this child unattended? I was out today collecting somebody and I pulled in one of the most busy roads in our city. That's not the freeway. And there was a toddler, probably 3 or 4 years old, on their own on a scooter on the road. I had to stop my car, put on my hazard lights and help the child onto the side of the road. And I had to stand there, people whizzing past beeping at me because they didn't understand why I was stopped in the middle of this big road. And I had to stand there with this child until his mother came from about a block and a half away. Now, that I don't need to tell you how dangerous that is. A child on their own out on the road like that. I live in Western Australia. I'm trying not to swear. It's a bloody hot city in Perth. Today was not a hot day. If that child was out in the sun, that alone would be dangerous enough for a 3 or 4 year old, whatever the kid was. Not to mention the traffic, not to mention the risk of them being snatched by somebody. I just don't get it. I don't get how people can be so irresponsible with their children. I think about my brothers with their kids because that's all I know. My brothers would never leave their kids out of their sight for more than a few minutes when they're that small. You don't know what they get up to when they're that age. Any of you watching that has young kids or has had young kids, You know the same. If you're sat at home and a half an hour goes by and you're like, where's the small one? Instantly, how are you not thinking, I need to know where my child is right now? 5 hours, guys. 5 hours in a hot car. Sickening. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next story. Alright, lads and lassies. Sorry, I just needed to take a quick break after that. Anyway, we're going to move on to a second story. This story comes out of Paris in France. And this has been all around the globe. This is a pretty big story at the moment. So this is relating to music producer Michael Zeckler, who is a black man living in Paris. So I'm going to read the story. I'll give you the background. Basically, there was this huge thing that went viral. He was assaulted by these 3 police officers. They beat the living hell out of him for about 5 or 6 minutes. They beat the crap out of him. One man, and he's not a big man either. He wasn't intoxicated. He wasn't trying to fight back. They beat his ass for 5 or 6 minutes because they didn't know that there was a camera up behind them watching them the whole time. The guy's face was destroyed. I watched the video. I'm going to play a little clip of it right now. So you can see it in the video there, guys, right? He's down and they're wailing on him. Now, I've been in situations where I've had to take down a prisoner who was being really, really difficult. I have never had to do something like that. Ever. There's no excuse for it. There is certain scenarios where you do need to use open hand strikes or whatever to try to subdue somebody if it's a really serious situation. But here's the thing. 3 police officers versus 1 man on his own in a confined space. He wasn't armed, he wasn't intoxicated, and he was not fighting back. If 3 of you can't take him down, you should hand in your badge immediately. If I, at the time, a big fat guy with fucking one eye missing, with no backup, I'm able to do that same job on my own without beating someone's ass, then 3 of you should be able to do it. This was nothing more than a disgusting assault. Now, there's been allegations that they used the N-word against him. I'm not 100% sure where that comes in. Even so, that would make it worse, but it doesn't really matter. Because at the end of the day, this is 3 police officers who beat a man without any real justification at all. None. There is no excuse. Now, you guys know, and I'm being honest, some of you don't like it. Bite me. I don't care. I back the police. I've been there on the front line. I know what they go through. But here's the thing. One thing I cannot abide by is police officers who abuse their power. When they go through all that training, they're trusted by us to do their job to the letter of the law, to uphold the law, and to protect us. If I call the police and I need protection, I expect to be protected. What happened to me the other day when I'm driving down the road, I handed a can of Coke to a homeless guy and I got a fine. Now, technically, I did the wrong thing. That's a different story. Beating a guy's ass, 3 of them, 3 on 1, in any situation. When a man is on the ground and you're beating him, you are a despicable piece of crap. I'm trying really hard not to swear. These 3 police officers have now been held in custody because tens of thousands of people hit the streets of Paris and said that they would not rest until that those men were held in custody. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that all the time. I think mob rule should not come into a legal decision. But this is very clear that the people are sick of this shit. This has been going on in France for a long time. I've got a lot of friends in Paris in particular. Paris and Dijon have massive problems with their police force. It's been an issue for years and years and years. Macron has decided to do nothing about this since he came into office. His predecessors did the exact same thing. It's something that has just been brushed under the rug for far too long. We used to have a lot of problems here in Australia with our police, and eventually it got cleaned up. There's still problems. There's always going to be problems. The same with anything. Same with the military, with anything. But it's cleaned up a lot compared to what it used to be. The French police have always had this issue. You ask any European that's been to France and partied a bit too hard, you get roughed up by the cops. It happens in Spain too. It happens in Turkey. I know a lot of people who fell foul of it in Turkey. There is no excuse for 3 big dudes to hold a guy down and beat him for minutes on end and to inflict that kind of injury on another human being. What is wrong with somebody's head that would allow them to do that? I could never imagine holding somebody down and beating them for doing nothing. This kind of mob mentality is disgusting. I've been on the inside when it comes to the whole law enforcement world. The us and them mentality is strong. It always has been. A lot of people say that it's for protection. You have to have an us and them mentality. I never had an us and them mentality. I always try to take people at face value and try to treat people with respect. This is disgusting. It's despicable. There's no excuse for this. I spoke to a few police officer mates of mine over the past few hours to get their thoughts on it. Obviously, none of them can come on and tell you guys because they'd get backlash for it. All of them think it's disgusting. And, I've heard it from many, many police officer friends of mine. Nobody hates a bad police officer more than a good police officer because it gives them a bad name. This is it's just disgusting. Like, here's another problem in France, right? There's a law which prohibits you from recording police officers doing their job in Paris. What have you got to hide? If you're a police officer and you're doing the right thing, you should have no problem with somebody sticking a camera in your face. Now, I've been there where people have stuck a camera in my face. It is irritating, but it's part of the job. If you don't like it, don't do the job. If you are out there, you're armed, and you're entrusted to protect society, and you have all of this power, you should be held accountable. You should be recorded. It's unbelievable. 50,000 people hit the streets of Paris to protest against this. Was it Plaza de République or whatever? 50,000 people. If that's not a clear indication that there's an issue, then I don't know what is. I've seen it in court here a few times where police officers have stood trial for abusing prisoners or whatever, where they've, been heavy-handed with them. I've seen a few where, somebody's been punched by a police officer or, my friend had his arm broken by a police officer. It happens. Just because I've got friends who are cops and just because I've been on that side of the job for a number of years doesn't mean I'm just going to blindly defend police officers. When somebody does wrong, I don't care who it is, I'll call it out. If it's my own family, I'll call it out. There's no excuse for this kind of behavior. They're a disgrace to the uniform. They're a disgrace to the job. This is not what policing is about, but it's what it's become. There's a lot of people out there like that. You see it all the time in America. You see it all the time in Australia. I've seen it dozens of times in court. Police officers getting done for this kind of thing. But I've never seen it as bad as that. That's one of the worst beatdowns I've ever seen. And then, of course, we had George Floyd and countless others. There's been a lot of things in the media where people say, police did this and police did that. And so, yes, police are getting a bad rap. And they're not always wrong. But in a lot of these situations, there's no excuse for their actions. Some of them are clear. Some of them are not so clear. Some of them have fault on either side. This is clear. I don't care if he was resisting arrest. If he's resisting arrest, one guy against 3 cops, and you can't subdue him, 3 guys, without beating his ass, you should never have been in the job in the first place. And that's why I know it was done intentionally. Because I've been in situations where I've had a prisoner way bigger and stronger than I am, and I've had to try to take him down on my own or with a partner. If I struck one of them in a court, cameras everywhere, I would be marched out that door in an instant with a charge. So if I can do it with no weapons and without having to beat somebody, then 3 of you should be able to do it. You're a disgrace. Alright guys, well, that's my 2 stories for today. Thank you for listening to me, and I know some of what I've just talked about is being confronting. There's a chance I could retract some of what I say when I talk like this, because I get passionate, as you can probably tell. I get passionate and I speak in the moment. You will have seen me do this on live streams, the Beardsman, and then the following day I think about what I've said. I'm like, oh no, I think I might have been wrong there, or I might have been a bit too passionate about what I said. So if I've said anything that you disagree with, all I ask is for respectful discourse. Don't just come out cop bashing. Don't call me a bootlicker. If you've got something to say it reasonably. We'll talk about it. I wish that videos like this didn't have to be made. I really do. But it's just the nature of the world we live in. And I think I would be doing a disservice if I was to show you guys cute, cuddly squirrels when in my head I'm thinking about all these things that are happening. There is an element of catharsis in making these videos for me. Being able to vent and get these things out to you and tell you how I feel about them. I may not be right. In fact, I'm usually wrong. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. But I think it's really important to get these out. It's really important to tell you guys how I feel about these kind of things. Some of you might go, oh, here he is ranting again. I'll wait for his next Flat Earth video or whatever. And that's fine. If you're here for that stuff, you'll get it. Don't worry. All I ask is that people be reasonable. Understand I'm not a journalist. I'm not an expert in current affairs or whatever. I'm just a guy telling you how I feel about stuff. So leave a comment down below. Just let me know how you feel about my stuff, about my content. Do you want to see more of this stuff? Or do you think I should just keep it to myself and not do it? And don't worry, I won't be offended. If you're a friend, then I would respect you a lot more for telling me the truth. If you like this kind of content, if you want me to do more of this content, let me know down below. And if you don't want me to, if you think it's too much or I'm not qualified to do it, let me know down below. I'd appreciate it. I really do want your feedback. I hope tomorrow when I open up the news that all I'm going to have to tell you is cute and cuddly stories. I wish, because Mrs. Demon sends them to me all the time. And I'm like, who's cutting the onions? When something cute happens. Like, I always tell you guys, my favorite video in the world is those videos of little babies getting hearing aids and hearing their mother's voice for the first time and smiling. Like, that's one of the most beautiful things ever. I wish I could bring you those kind of stories all the time, but I saw this story yesterday as I was recording my other segment, and I just felt it in me. I was like, I can't not address this stuff. I have to call shit out when I see. You guys know what I'm like. I can't help it. So here it is. I'm going to keep doing it, but I would like to hear what you guys have to say. Anyway, lads and lassies, thank you so much for tuning in, listening to my rant. I feel better having gotten it out. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing what you've all got to say. Sláinte.